After that, we totally revamped our EAP. We now offer 6 free coaching sessions and 6 free therapy sessions. And it's been extremely popular. But if you just say, here's this EAP, we have this, it's underused and underutilized. So I think leaders need to think about that.
Welcome to our Happy Rainmaker series where point one can make a difference. Today, I'm joined by Dan Lukasik, who is the current Judicial Wellness Coordinator for the New York State Office of Court Administration. Thank you so much for joining me, Dan.
Thanks, Jen, for having me.
Now, you mentioned that depression is much more prevalent in the legal profession than the general population. Do you have any theories on why?
So my way of looking at it, it's a perfect storm. And some things have nothing to do with being a lawyer. It has to do with things that happen well before people even set foot into law school, such as genetics. We know that 50% of depression and anxiety it results from a genetic propensity towards that. We also know that childhood trauma or neglect primes people, sets the stage for adult onset depression and anxiety. So those two things happen before people even become a lawyer. Then you add on to it the demanding nature of the profession, the chronic stress. It's a win-loss profession. Lawyers tend to be, by nature, type A personalities, which may make you successful as a lawyer, but sometimes isn't a good attribute to have if you're trying to take a step back and say, I can't figure everything out. I can't solve this by myself. I certainly was in that position with my own depression. I tried to solve it myself. I couldn't. And it was at that point that I needed to get the help, and I did get it. So I think it's these factors, some of which predate becoming a lawyer and some which are unique to the law profession. And I think it's those things combined that explain where we find ourselves.
I attended a conference where there was a global law firm that decided to bring therapy into the law firm. So they have therapists on site so that they could kind of work around what's very unique about a lawyer schedule. Do you think that could be workable at a lot of firms?
Yeah, I do, and I think that comes from leadership, valuing that kind of thing. I've worked with a large law firm where I gave a talk, and afterwards, one of the things I said is, you have an EAP, that provides you all kinds of services, including mental health. But the people who work at your law firm, I bet you they don't even know who those people are. They've never met them. What are their names? What do you do? So I said to them, to the leaders, bring those people, those bodies into your law firm, into your conference room, and have them give a short talk to your law firm and say, this is who we are. This is what we do. I bumped into the managing partner a few months ago. And she says, after that, we totally revamped our EAP. We now offer 6 free coaching sessions and 6 free therapy sessions. And it's been extremely popular. But if you just say, here's this EAP, we have this, it's underused and underutilized. So I think leaders need to think about that. And I think the other aspect that's true when it comes to therapy and not going to therapy and not saying you have time, to be honest, I think that's true sometimes, but I think there's also some fear in lawyers where they think that if they really went into therapy and got to the bottom of this, they would discover, I don't want to work here, and what would that be? That's terrifying. Or I've met many lawyers, successful people. I don't even want to be a lawyer anymore. I often say lawyers have the most vivid imaginations of any profession I've ever known. And I say that because when I talk to them and get to know them, they'll say, I want to open a bookstore, or I want to be a pastry chef, or I want to go live in Tuscany and open a tourism business. They're fantasizing because their day-to-day, week-to-week, year-to-year reality isn't so good, right? And what does that say? So I think some lawyers, yes, it's not, they don't have enough time. That's true. But some of it is they're scared to find out what they might find out in therapy. Then what?
That's a very interesting perspective. I hadn't thought of it that way. I do hear that some lawyers are so afraid to tell their clients that they're unavailable for an hour. And, even to get a health screening or to, seek medical attention for a medical issue, not even just a mental health issue, emergency kind of things. They're afraid to go to the emergency room. They're afraid to be away from the office. And I always tell them that their clients would want them to seek treatment for mental and physical issues because they want them to be at their best. And over time, they probably care about them as people a little bit too. And they would.
I think so. And I think that comes back to leadership again. And I'll give you an example. I gave a webinar with a partner from Reed Smith in a global firm. And he said his one non-negotiable is going to sleep at 9 o'clock. He doesn't care if the ceiling falls in. That's his non-negotiable. And I think another thing firm leaders can do is say, well, who's on relief? If someone, for example, needs the time off, is there another lawyer that could be plan B who can take over, like coverage, so to speak? I think there's creative ways to deal with this, but there has to be some forethought put into it.
You're helping a lot of people. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Well, thanks a lot. I'm really humbled by that, and I'm humbled to be of service to people, and thanks for having me.